for one of my shows, which perhaps were one of the first she gave for a Pakistani media channel. She's worked as a diplomat, as we already know, with the US State Department, but also as the Director for Communications for the Aspen Institute in Washington, as an independent consultant to non-profit boards, and she's also a writer for the 1984 Olympics in Los Angeles. She's been the author of the Handbook for NGO Governance and is currently working for the US Agency for International Development, commonly known as the USAID in Islamabad. So we definitely know, and especially since our interaction at the International Women's Day Forum too, the micro-entrepreneurship forums for women is something that is especially very close to her heart. We'd like to know what is her understanding of the very diverse and at the same time the very mysterious Pakistani woman. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our chief guest for the ceremony, Dr. Marilyn Wyatt. Thank you very much. Ms. Dawood, Mrs. Bajab, Ms. Pushpat, Ms. Iqbal, distinguished awardees, honored guests, Assalamu alaikum. What a thrill it is for me to be here in the same location with so many distinguished women. I'm truly humbled to take part in an event celebrating the achievements of so many exceptional Pakistani women. I'd like to offer a round before I go any further for the Ladies Fund for successfully realizing its mission of promoting women's empowerment in Pakistan. Now, 2011 was a very good year for the women of Pakistan. Your parliament was able, among other things, to stiffen the punishment for acid attacks on women, to criminalize such practices as marrying off young girls to settle tribal disputes and preventing women from inheriting property. And of course, you got your first female foreign minister. And 2012 is looking equally promising. Already your Senate has unanimously passed legislation criminalizing domestic violence and institutionalizing the National Commission for the Status of Women. And now that very valuable institution can serve as a watchdog of women's rights and a force for positive change. And of course, a Pakistani woman has won an Academy Award, which in my country is more or less the same as joining the ranks of royalty. Now, these are not small achievements. In the area of legislation, Pakistan's government, along with your country's parliamentarians and National Assembly members, have really deserved huge accolades for pushing for these courageous steps across party lines. But for all of us who are here today, we know there is still very much work to be done. Implementation of these laws will be infinitely more difficult than getting them signed into existence. From the halls of power to the hallways of village dwellings, there is a vast chasm that must be spanned. And yet, I believe you can do it, and I believe you must do it. The future of Pakistan depends on your efforts. As the Secretary of State in my own country, Hillary Clinton, has often noted, women account for more than 50% of the world's population, but they occupy less than 20% of all parliamentary seats in the world. In the United States, I'm ashamed to say that percentage is even lower. Women make up only 17% of our Congress, and they sit in only 1/4 of the seats in our in our state legislatures combined. And there's another crucial area in which you in Pakistan are way ahead of us. Pakistan has already had a female prime minister, while we in America are still dreaming of the day when a woman will occupy the White House. That women are so shut out of public life all over the world is especially deplorable because in today's conflicts, women and children are so often the primary victims, whether they're caught directly in the firing lines, whether they're victims of rape used as a tool of war, or whether they're forced to leave their homes to find their way to refugee camps. So women as victims of conflict have a very personal stake in resolving conflict. And as you know, we're pretty good at doing what we set our minds to, particularly when our family's welfare and our community's welfare is at stake. So if you're trying to solve a problem, whether it's fighting corruption or strengthening rule of law or sparking economic growth, you're much more likely to succeed if you widen the circle to include a broader range of expertise, experience, and ideas. And that means including more women. As we work to solve our problems, we need more women in the halls of Parliament and in the chambers of the courts and around corporate board tables, so that when these debates are occurring, women's voices can be heard and their experiences can be taken into account. For that to happen, we need to create more opportunities for girls and young women to develop the skills they need to succeed. We need to help them overcome the certain barriers that still stand in the way all over the world: prejudice, isolation, shame, ignorance. We need to push governments and schools and parents to help young girls grow up believing that they can succeed in any profession, including and perhaps especially those professions that are traditionally associated with men. We need to offer girls training so they can grow into competent professionals. We must remunerate women for the work that they do and hire them in equal numbers to men and move them up the corporate ladder into managerial positions where they can take on greater responsibilities and leave more of a mark. And above all, we need to ensure that women have access to adequate health care and to care for their children. With our partners in Pakistan, the United States is working hard to create opportunities for women that allow them to do many of these things. The organization that I work for, the U.S. Agency for International Development, is helping Pakistani women in a number of ways. We have a gender equity program, for example, that's implemented by the LADIESFUND Foundation and grants awards to civil society organizations to end gender-based violence and advance women's rights and economic opportunities. We have an entrepreneurs program that's supporting women in remote areas so they can develop small businesses out of their homes and contribute to their families' incomes. And our Follow project trains lady health workers to help women and their husbands understand their family planning options and the benefits of fewer and healthier children. Finally, working with many partners across the country, we're helping to build and renovate schools and train teachers so that all children, including girls, have access to quality basic education. This is just a sampling of the projects that show how much the American people who give money to these projects by paying taxes really do want to see Pakistani girls grow up healthy and educated and able to choose from a broad panoply of options as they shape their lives. But these efforts are just a drop in the bucket. Real progress for women comes when we work together with solidarity, when we help each other out, whether as public servants, or as teachers, or as professional mentors, or as members of an international network such as LADIESFUND, or simply as friends. Women need women, and women need the men who love and support us. When we share a vision together, as I know all of us here today do, we've already taken a huge step forward towards realizing that vision. So I congratulate all of you for your grace and your confidence and your friendship and your helping hands. When people ask me, what's the best thing I found in Pakistan, as they often do, I really mean it from the bottom of my heart when I reply, it's the women. And I'm so glad to have met a few more of Pakistan's talented, beautiful, savvy, inspiring women who are sitting here today. Thank you.